Well, hello everyone. My name is McKenzie Kane with the National Sports Media Association, coming to you from the 64th award ceremony and convention, joined here by Chris Marlowe. Now, Mr. Marlowe, thank you for just taking the time to sit down and speak with me
Good
today.
to be here.
Now, if you wouldn't mind just walking me through your association with the NSMA and how it feels to be here right now.
Well, it's taken me a while to get here. This is my 20th year in the sportscasting business with Altitude Sports and the Denver Nuggets. And this is the first time I was ever nominated and the first chance I ever had to win the award. And so I thought I'd come out and see what all the hubbub was about, and it's great. I've got a chance to meet a lot of people and do a little hobnobbing. I just chatted with Bob Ryan, who I idolized growing up, a big Boston Celtics fan. And so it's been really a terrific experience so far.
Now, actually, I had Mr. Ryan in that exact chair just a few minutes ago, and
Feels like a Boston Celtic chair,
Right.
a little scratchy, yeah.
But as a Boston sports fan myself, being born and raised in New England, I was curious. This being your first time attending the convention, how much banter is there going back and forth with these people who are coming from all over the country, sports fanatics, over the nature of sports right now and their opposing teams?
Well, mostly it's basketball stuff. So I've seen some of the basketball announcers that live in the NBA from Miami, from Dallas, and we all talk about like what happened to our teams. The only person not talking about that is Bob Ryan, who just ranked his all-time greatest Celtics teams forever. I grew up actually as a Lakers fan back in the day, and I was maybe the #1 Lakers fan. Me and all my friends. And all my friends still out in Los Angeles are all huge Lakers fans. So when they go into the tank, I have bragging rights. But our big nemesis at the time was the Boston Celtics. It would go back and forth with Magic and Bird and all the way back to Baylor and West and Russell and all those guys. And so I was hoping that the Denver Nuggets would meet the Boston Celtics in the finals this year. It didn't quite work out that way, but maybe next year.
Now, you mentioned California Lakers, and doing my research on your collegiate career at San Diego State, playing both basketball and volleyball, and then transferring into broadcasting and calling yet again the same sports. Can you just talk to me about any of the similarities or differences you see between the sports and how you approach play-by-play?
I was athletic growing up in Los Angeles. I went to San Diego State on a combined basketball and volleyball scholarship. I always thought I was going to play in the NBA, and then a year or two into my basketball career at San Diego State, I realized that I wasn't going to play in the NBA. But I had a great future in volleyball, and I eventually worked my way onto the USA national team in the mid-'70s, retired, went into acting, and then I got a break broadcasting when a coach said, hey, this guy would be good for a telecast because he's got a big mouth and a loud voice. And so I started off with my first broadcast in 1978, the ABC Wide World of Sports. It was UCLA and Pepperdine Volleyball. I actually worked with Bruce Jenner. One of the people that could say, I worked with Bruce Jenner before he turned into Caitlyn Jenner. It's been a great run for me. I moved to Denver in 2004 to accept the Nuggets job, and it's been great ever since.
Now since that first moment in the wide world of sports, 1978, how have you seen just the world of sports media evolve?
Well, I would say the world of sports has evolved. There's so many opportunities for youngsters now, like yourself. There's podcasts. There's TV outlets everywhere. Who thought that in 2024 we'd be televising pickleball? I mean, they're just sports that we've never heard of, that are up and coming, and there's all these cable networks. So I think for young broadcasters, there's opportunity everywhere. I think the media has become harsh a bit, more discerning. But generally, I think the media does a pretty good job. There's a lot more arguing, a lot more yelling and screaming on TV, which I personally don't like. I don't like favoritism. I like to be objective if I can. And so that's where I would say, leave your prejudice and biases at home. When you watch a game, there was a famous reporter 2 years ago that said she had never watched a Nuggets game and didn't realize how good Nikola Jokic was. I said, watch the games, watch him, and you'll know. So you got to do your homework, and all in all, I think it's going pretty good.
Now, yeah, speaking of Nikola Jokic himself, he was just announced as the just an athlete of the year for the National Sports Media Association. What has it been like just, watching such a generational athlete?
Well, he's the best athlete, or I should say, at least the best basketball player that I've ever watched play. He does it so easily. He's so skilled. I think he's getting the recognition now that he deserves. I think before he didn't, because he's not your typical basketball player. He's not your high jumping 6'8", flying, dunking, slamming. He's a little bit awkward 7-foot Serbian with a unusual touch, and his English is not quite great. And so I think it's taken a while for people to warm up to him. I say basketball player I've ever watched. I covered Greg Louganis when he was the greatest diver of all time and dominated his sport like no other diver had ever. So he might be the greatest that I've ever watched in his own sport that I've ever covered. But it's been fun to watch Nikola not only get to Denver, but to deliver a championship.
Now that being said, you have covered dozens of different sports. Can you which one would you say is the most difficult or most challenging?
Well, I think when I started out, boxing was quite the challenge. Because I don't have a boxing background, and I was called by CBS to cover some boxing matches in New York, and I said, I don't really know that much about boxing. Obviously, I was an announcer at the time, and it was like a Saturday. I was at the Pan American Games in Indianapolis, and they needed me in New Jersey to call Monday Night Fights. And I said, is there any way you could work me in next week? He goes, we don't need you for boxing next week. We need you Monday night. Can you make it? And I got there, and one tip that I got on how to do boxing, he said, don't wear a nice shirt. Do not wear a nice shirt because you get stuff all over your blood and guts and slobber and all that stuff. So I took and I had a couple of guys and just trying to remember the names and try to figure it out. And, if I go like that to you, does that punch hurt? Does it hurt or does it not hurt? So boxing was really a challenge. And I think sports where you need to be an expert at it. For example, I can never do golf because even though I play golf, I'm not an expert. And as soon as I say the ball's lying on the fringe instead of the rough or whatever, people will know that you're a fraud. But football, which I didn't play a lot of, I can say, hey, Marlowe back to pass, spots him out over the middle. There goes the 30-20. You can call the play-by-play and then have someone come in and assist you on that. So I've done baseball, basketball, football, gymnastics, windsurfing, 24 sports. I added it up the other day. And so, they're all kind of challenging in their own way. Some are identification, some are not. Some are filling, some are not. In a couple of weeks, I'm on my way to Paris to do my 10th Olympic Games for NBC, and I'll be calling beach volleyball. And the challenge there is you only have 2 on a side, which is good. So you got to have a lot of film material in between on stories and makeup and background. So that'll be a lot of fun. And
speaking of volleyball, you made an Olympic appearance yourself with the Olympic volleyball team, 1984.
Yes.
How was the transition from athlete to announcing, and what was one of the most valuable lessons that you've learned through that transition?
Well, I had started to do the announcing, and then I decided in 1982 to go back to the national team and try to make the team. And so I ended up doing that, and I eventually got elected captain of the team. And we ended up winning the gold medal, make a long story short. And at that time, I was actually doing acting. I had some acting roles in some soap operas and some nighttime stuff. And I was also doing the announcing, and my agent said, look, you're going to have to make a decision. Do you want to be an actor or do you want to be an announcer? They're not the same thing. You can't do both. And so at that time, the acting career kind of was fizzling, and the announcing was coming on, and I thought, I can just kind of be myself. And my best friend told me, he said, you're good when you're yourself. Don't try to be something else that you're not. So I went ahead with the announcing. I got the Olympics in 1988. I was working out in California doing Pac-12 basketball and football and a host of other sports, and kind of kept working and working, and I never knew if I was going to get into the NBA or not. I had auditioned for the Lakers radio job, didn't get it, and then finally I was able to get an audition for the Nuggets job and secure that, and the rest is 20 years later. I'm sitting here with you.
Now, I think anyone can agree, especially attending this event, with the number of state winners for sports writing, sportscasting.
50 of them. I think.
50 of them, and then some, actually, because a couple of them are co, so it's, I think, up to 108, 2 per state.
Wow.
I know.
Well, that's the broadcasters and the writers. No, nobody cares about the writers. I'm sorry.
But even with those 108 winners, none of their paths were the same. And you yourself took a winding path into the world of broadcast. So, I mean, what advice do you have to us youngsters on, who might be discouraged knowing that there's no immediate path to this industry?
Well, there are, as you mentioned, a number of different paths. The first path, the best path, is nepotism. If you have someone in the business, your dad is in the business, your uncle's in the business, your brother, somewhere along the line, the next best path is you're an athlete. And that's what I was. That was my path. I was an Olympic volleyball player, and I got hired to do a job for ABC, and I was able to make my way, weaving my way through volleyball and then getting a chance to do basketball and other sports. But what I would say to broadcasters like yourself, there's never been more opportunity. You're doing a podcast, you're on the air, you can be a host, you can be a sideline reporter, you can be a play-by-play person. I think the first thing I would say is you need to kind of figure out what you're good at and what you like. What excites you? Do you want to go to the games? Do you want to be in the studio like a Hannah Storm or one of the great women hosts? Do you like to be on the sideline reporting and interviewing athletes? So I think once you kind of figure out your path, you can work your way up. I was telling my wife the other day, I think some of my ideas of how you get someone interested in your job are kind of archaic, because when I was around, a friend of mine and I, we hired a camera crew to go out to a college football game, and we did stand-ups. And so we did like 10 or 12 stand-ups. Hi, Chris Marlowe and David Rotman. We're here at Corsair Field. We got that. And I put them all together, and I sent those to Mo Davenport, who was the coordinating producer of ESPN at that point. And I said, hey, Mo, I know I do volleyball. Here's some football I did. Any chance I could work my way in? And he hired me off that tape. And I did Saturday Night Football in the SEC, which was one of their big packages. So now my wife said, well, you don't have to hire a camera crew anymore. You can do it on your iPhone. Yeah, iPhone, you put things together. You can do broadcasting. You can get on the air. There's so many different outlets and so many different things you can do. So I would just say branch out, touch the waters on all kinds of avenues for yourself. And see what you like. Are you a TV person? You obviously have a TV personality that would be good, but radio is also good. So the paths are different. You never know who you're going to meet. I would say be gracious and kind to people when you're coming up, because those people, I notice now that all the runners and all the assistant people that I worked with in Los Angeles back in the 80s are now all producers. And so they end up hiring you at the end of the day, and it's pretty interesting when you see them.
Well, first off, thank you for that compliment. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Every compliment it just makes you want to continue what you're doing.
Are you a host type? Is that what you want to be? What are your desires?
I think truthfully, like you put it best, I'm still finding my path. So I have a podcast at school. I interview coaches and players off of anything except the sport that they're involved in to get to know who they are outside of, starting quarterback. And then I also do sideline reporting at the school.
That's interesting. So when I was at UCLA, I got a break, and I was working for Prime Ticket out at UCLA, and one of the features we used to do was a walkie-talkie with football players. So we just walk around campus, and we're just walking and talking, and the cameraman was really funny. He'd come in and go out, and he'd make some outrageous statements, and you'd walk and talk with linemen, and you ask them all these crazy things, and that became part of my gig, part of my audition tape. So you never know when someone looks at something and goes, hey, that person would be really good for this particular job. And once you get in, then you have a long future.
Well, Mr. Marlowe, before I let you go, for people who aren't familiar with the NSMA, tomorrow they're hosting a workshop at this convention on, play-by-play announcing and tips, and I know that you're one of the individuals helping
Yes,
us youngsters.
I already gave you all my tips. I don't think
know.
I have any left for tomorrow.
And, of course, we got to keep some of them to yourself
Yeah.
just to convince other people
There you
to
go.
come to the convention. But nevertheless, outside of that, what are you most looking forward to this weekend?
Well, tomorrow night's the biggie because I've never won the award, and a lot of people back in Denver supported me. A lot of people helped me get the job in Denver, so I don't really know what to expect. I'm going to walk up there, I'm going to get my award, I'm going to give a big smile, I'm going to thank some of the people if I say anything, which I don't think you do. Looking forward to a great dinner and a great time.
Well, thank you again for just taking the time to sit down with me. It was a pleasure getting to know you a little bit more, and congratulations on the award.
Well, thank you, and when you get to be big time, don't forget the little people, right?
I appreciate that. And I'm just for the record, because I know we're sitting down. How tall are you? I can't.
6'3".
I can't really call you a little.
6'3". Well, my partner's 7 feet in Denver, so everybody goes, "Wow, you're taller than I thought you were." Because my partner's 7 feet.
And what position do you play in volleyball?
I started as a middle blocker, went to outside hitter, played the Russians, realized I was not going to be an outside hitter, and then switched to setter. So I was
So I have to assume you've got the vertical jump too.
a very high vertical.
Well, I guess I'll have to see it later on this weekend, right? You could still.
Well, no, I can't do anything anymore. No.
Well,
My golf
again,
game is getting better.
and I'm happy to put you up to the test there.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. I appreciate your time.